I feel like we have so much to talk about, and I honestly cannot wait for it. Hello everyone, welcome in. My name is Autumn, and today is going to be a reflect and reset vlog. It's going to revolve around my writing life, my reading life, and a little bit of personal things. I will leave timestamps linked down below, so if you are more interested in seeing maybe more of the writing stuff, reading stuff, or personal stuff, you can just bebop around. But anywho, let's go ahead and kick this vlog off with talking about all of the writing that I've done. I have not posted a single writing vlog this entire year of 2025, which is so wild. That's what my channel is based off of, right? It was founded on writing. So I did know that going into my master's program, I wasn't going to have quite so much free time. I just didn't realize that whenever I would have the downtime or that free time, I would prefer to be reaching for a published book versus actually working on my own book. That has been what this year has turned into. At the beginning of the year or the end of last year, I had set some goals for my reading and for my writing, and since we're talking about writing to start with, I had set a few goals and will be totally transparent. I know I have not hit those goals. While I'm not disappointed because it's kind of what I expected, I am a little shocked that I just don't have as much time to work on my writing that I thought I would. So at the beginning of the year, for the first maybe 3 or 4 months, I was setting aside a little bit of time on my days off to work on writing. No, it wasn't anything, super extravagant. It wasn't, 6 hours worth of writing or really diving deep into the stories or anything. I did a lot of surface level things, particularly with my story, which is Project Ice. It's one of my high fantasy stories. I was able to work on that story just a bit, focused on the characters and worked on the plot of the story. Working through the plot of this story, I ended up making an Excel sheet. I also started working on writing out the main plot point. Sorry, there's a spider outside and it was just crawling on the window and it distracted me. I wrote out some sticky notes, I wrote out some key plot points, and I had them stuck to my wall in my office, but they ended up falling off because the sticky part of it was not very good. And plus the paint on the walls here is like not the best. So they just kept falling off. So I have them in a little stack, not out here with me, but I have them in a little stack of the order of those big main plot points. And I know how the story ends. It's definitely morphed into a bigger project than I anticipated, but I'm really not upset about it. So for this project, with it being high fantasy, it's in its own world. There is a magic system, and it's going to be somewhat of a soft magic system. I don't want like super hard concrete barriers around the magic system, but I am really not trying to focus a whole lot on the magic system right now. I want to focus on the characters and the plot first, and then learn how to kind of manipulate the world and the magic system to complete the story. I have not written like chapters or 2,000 words or anything like that. It's mainly just been replotting the story and finding how to connect those big plot points and then figuring out the characters that I want and what parts that those characters can play in the story. It's been a very slow process, and we are at the end of July. I have not worked on this story or really any creative story since the beginning of April, I think, which is so crazy to think about because it doesn't feel like that much time. Everybody has stuff that they're going through, the highs and the lows and the times where you can write a lot and the times in life when you can't write a lot. I'm currently in the stage of where I'm not writing a whole lot, but I'm not really upset about it. I am reflecting on the first half of this year because I don't know what to expect for the second half. Part of me wants to set goals for my writing to try and like hit those goals, even if there's something minor, but I'm really afraid to set some type of goal and then not hit those goals and then have that weighing on me where like, oh, well, I'm not doing this and I'm not writing and I'm not hitting goals. We don't need to do that. There's like way too much chaos going on right now for me to feel upset about not hitting minor goals. I think how I'm going to handle my writing for the rest of this year is to work it in when I can, especially to work with Project Ice. When I was setting goals for this year, I had super high expectations of myself to work on my thriller novel, which is Project Getaway, and I thought that that was going to be the story that I was really going to get sucked into. I was going to have a lot of fun writing that thriller. Not saying I haven't had fun writing that thriller, but It's been a while since I've looked at that story, and I felt like my mind wasn't quite there for the thriller. Like, I have some ideas and I still want to work on the story, still want to get that first draft written, but what I want to happen into the story, I really need to like sit down and brainstorm and work through all of those plot points, because there's a certain plot line that is gonna be the underlying plot for all of it, but I haven't quite figured out how I want that to work. And I feel like I haven't been able to dedicate enough time to working on that story. And I know for probably the next year, I'm not gonna have enough time to work on the thriller. That thriller is going to be a little bit more time consuming than I first thought that it would be, but I'm really not too upset about it because I want to dedicate enough time to that story. I really want it to have my undivided attention once I finally get there. Also, if I sound like I have a lisp or whatever, I'm wearing Invisalign. Sometimes my speech sounds a little wonky. The next writing project I wanted to touch on that I haven't worked at all on, and I'm so upset about it because it's one of my favorites. It's my cozy fantasy story, which is Project Traveling Bards. Haven't worked on this story at all this year. I thought that I was going to have a little bit of time to work on this story. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to be writing chapters and hundreds of thousands of words or whatever for this particular project. Not like it would even have that much work, but I need to rework that story, revisit that world, and there have been a lot of cozy fantasy stories that have come out recently that I actually want to read before I get back to my cozy fantasy. When I was reading the synopsis of some of these other cozy fantasy stories, I was like, oh, these are actually some of the elements that I wanted to include in this story. Let me revisit the genre and then kind of circle back to my project. So I think that is also going to be a project that I'll have to pick up next year in 2026, or honestly even 2027 at this point, since I am still in my master's program and I don't graduate until May, like the beginning of next May. So we still have quite a bit of time until I feel like I'm gonna be free to have more time to work on things. So I definitely don't want to overwhelm myself. I don't want to set those super high expectations like I talked about earlier. What my plan is for the last 4 months of the year, because we're in August pretty much, what I want my plan to be is I do just want to revisit one of these stories. It's mostly going to be Project Ice though, because I feel like my thriller and my cozy fantasy are going to need a little bit more love and attention and all of that. And I feel like my mind is more set on I want to work on Project Ice and I want to get that story worked out and figure out what I want to do with the second draft of that story. So it makes the most sense to focus a lot of my time on that project. If and when I have time to work on this novel, or to set aside some time to write, I want to do that. It doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't have to be every week, but I want to try to get at least 2 hours a month of writing time in, and that honestly sounds doable. I mean, if I do all of this reading, one day I can opt to write instead of to read. But I'm telling you guys, I've been really having a lot of fun reading, and we're going to talk about some of my reading goals later in the video and how that has been going, since we're just strictly talking about writing right now. But my reading life has been so great. It's been really, really fun. If you didn't know this, I currently work in a hospital and I do 312s. You would think, and I had also thought, that doing 312s, I would have so much more time to do all of the things that I need to do. And don't get me wrong, having 4 days off a week is fabulous, but I always feel like that first day after working those 3 shifts is kind of a recovery day, and it's more turned into recovery / I have to get all of my schoolwork done. So I don't really get a break, and I'm always a firm believer, have always been, for always and forever, I'll be a firm believer that you need to set aside time for yourself. We all need that time set aside for us. I know sometimes for some people, and how I used to be, that time that I set aside for myself, it used to be I would set that aside a time for myself, but it would be for writing. And so I feel like right now it's a little bit of a struggle, where I feel like if I set aside time, I feel like writing is another job, and I don't want that. And I just think it's because my mind is going a million miles a minute that I feel like it's an extra task. Don't want my writing to feel like something, it's a task, a chore, it's something I have to just check off the list. I want it to be something that I enjoy and something I look forward to. So I am trying to work on that. I'm trying to acknowledge that I know that that is how I'm looking at writing at this particular moment. And I've never looked at writing like that before, I don't think. Just trying to reprogram my mind to have it look like when I'm sitting down to write that this is my escape, you know, this is my happy time, which has been a struggle, and I would not say that I've been the best at doing that. As we can see, it's been since the beginning of April since I've written anything. And who knows, I know we're sitting here and we're talking about it, but who knows if it's gonna change. I feel like it could change if I had a different work schedule, or if maybe life was a little more consistent. In personal life, I'm burnt out with a lot of things, and so then when I'm home, I don't want to do a whole lot. You know, if that makes any sense. For myself and for my well-being, I definitely need more of a fixed schedule. I need to find a new normal, and I feel like I've yet to find a new normal because I've literally just been holding on for the ride for the last year. Everything in life is a phase and everything is temporary. I'm just trying to be optimistic and acknowledge and talk about the things, especially, you know, when it's affected my writing, because it's a huge part of my life, and it had been for, I don't know, what, 4 years maybe, because I started my master's program last year. So for about 4 years, writing was a really big part of my life. I haven't really been able to dedicate a lot of time to it for the last year. And I feel like I can tell it's taken a toll on my mental health, on my creativity, because I'm not really practicing that. You know, I'm not exercising that muscle. I want for the next 4 months to try to set aside 2 hours each of those months. So what is that? About 8 hours I want to dedicate to writing. And I think that's everything I have for a reflection on my writing up until this point, and then a reset. Definitely hoping for a little bit more light being in this location, but unfortunately it has been a gloomy day, and it's going to continue to be a gloomy day. While I haven't made a lot of progress with writing, reading is so much different. My reading goals have been soaring. I've been having a lot of fun with most of the books I've been picking up this year. Up until this point, I've only DNF'd one book. I think I gave one book 1 or 2 stars, but really everything else has been a 3, 4, or a 5-star read. I think I'm enjoying it a lot more. Things in life feel a little bit busier, feel a little more chaotic. So when I'm setting that time aside to read, I am picking up great books. I'm enjoying those books, and I'm enjoying that escaping for however long it takes me to read a book. How I like to track my reading goals, I do it 2 ways. I use Storygraph when I finish a book, when I end a book, and then I just give a star rating. I don't typically give a review or anything like that on Storygraph, but I love Storygraph because you can see your progress over time. I love the little graphs that it shows you and all of the little visuals. I'm very much a visual person. The other way I like to keep track of my reading, so at the end of last year I created a 2025 TBR, and because I'm a lot slower reader, I decided to just read 50 books. That's the goal for this year. I picked 12 books that are my most anticipated books that I want to read this year. Then I picked 5 series that I've already started and I want to complete. So I want to talk about all of those goals to show you guys this 2025 book list, the TBR, whatever you want to call it. You can see it's just a Google Doc with the 12 books that I want to read for the entire year. And then I do have some honorable mentions down there below. Those honorable mentions are if I finish those 12 books and I want to read a few more books, I have those options. There are also books that I really want to get to this year. Here you can see that anyone that has been slashed through, I have read that book. We're doing fairly well, I think, with our goals. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, because that book is so chunky, it's like 800 plus pages, I think. It's a little intimidating because I know how long it's going to take me. Every time I put it on a monthly TBR, it always ends up going onto the back burner because all of the other books that are on my list for that month are a lot shorter, and I feel like I can hold my attention a lot more with those shorter books. I have been reading a lot of really thick fantasy books. So I finished recently Mistborn, that trilogy, not all at once, but I finished the last 2 books over the summer, and then I am now reading the 4th book to finish the Faithful and the Fallen series. And I also want to read Crooked Kingdom soon too, and all of those books are pretty chunky. I'm always kind of scared to read more than one chunky book at one time because I don't want to get things mixed up. I don't want to miss things in one novel. I've been struggling with that, trying to read this book, and I know with them being different genres, it would probably be okay. For me and how I know I like to read, it's just gonna be easier for me if I only focus on To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And right now, I feel like I haven't found that sweet spot for that book, and I think what's gonna happen is I'm just gonna have to jump into it. My loose game plan in my mind with that is to finish the 2 fantasy series, The Faithful and the Fallen and the 6 of Crows series, and I want to jump into reading To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I really do think I can finish all 12 of those books. We have the 5 series that I want to finish this year. Sadly, the only series on here that I finished is an honorable mention. I am almost finished with Wrath. So I've read Ruin. We're just waiting for me to finish Wrath, and I'm about 51% of the way through with that book. I'm hoping that Crooked Kingdom is going to be the next book that I read. Vow of Thieves. I read Dance of Thieves last year. I still really do want to read this book to finish that series, but if I don't finish that series, it will be totally fine. I can always read it next year. We have Beasts of Prey. I have read this book. I really, really loved book 1, and I wanted to read book 2 and 3. I want to own the series, and I really just haven't had an opportunity to purchase those books to complete the series. While I want to finish the series by the end of the year, I think it might be pushing it, considering I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 books in front, and we're just going to be totally practical. Those are just 12 books that are on this list. Those aren't books that I like to mood read, books that I have to read for my book club with my friend. I don't see myself finishing the series this year, unfortunately, but there's always next year. That kind of goes for A Darker Shade of Magic. I read the first book, which I don't even remember. Yes, I do. It's called A Darker Shade of Magic. I read that book. That was one of the first books I read when I was starting to get back into reading, and I loved it, but I know I am going to have to reread book 1 to finish that series. I own all 3 books. They're on my bookshelf back there. I just haven't had the time to read that series because I knew I was going to have to start it over. I have kind of run out of time with that book. If anything, I can always start A Darker Shade of Magic, but I think that might be something that gets pushed on to next year, which is fine. I am totally okay with that. And then The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I believe this is the spinoff to The Silent Patient by the same author. I really loved The Silent Patient. I think that that could actually be a book I could get to by the end of the year. I did end up reading Vengeance of the Pirate Queen by Trisha Levenseller, and that finished that series, although I'm not entirely sure if this book counts as book 3 or if it's kind of more of a spin-off, because the first 2 books is The Daughter of the Pirate King and Daughter of the Siren Queen, and then this book is The Vengeance of the Pirate Queen. However, we follow different characters, or we have a different main character in this book. I'm not entirely sure if it would be considered a spin-off or if it's considered book 3. Regardless, I did end up reading that book, so I was able to cross that off the list. I think for the end of 2025, what I'm going to try and aim for the 5 series that I want to finish this year is to finish Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, finish Wrath by John Gwynne, and Fury by Alex Michaelides. I don't know if I'll be able to get to the other ones because I know Vow of Thieves is a little bit of a thicker book. We will probably take the L with that. So for 2025, I have a goal to read 50 books. As of right now, according to Storygraph, I have read 32 books this year. I feel like some things have changed or updated with Storygraph, so I'm not 100% sure if it counts your DNFs. But if it does, I only have 1 DNF. I have not really talked too much about the books that I've read for the last few months. I'm not going to give in-depth reviews or anything, but I want to mention the books that I have read recently. And I'm gonna do this a little bit quickly. I will put a graphic of the book up here. It has been since April since we've sat down and talked about any reading types of goals or anything. The first book I want to talk about that I gave 3.5 stars was The Return of Ellie Black. Enjoyed this one. The next one that I read and I gave it 5 stars, and I actually listened to the audiobook for this one, but it is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Really, really loved that one. Highly recommend the audiobook. The author actually narrates his own book, so really loved it. And I actually have plans to re-listen to it. The next one up is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this 3 stars. No Exit by Taylor Adams. I gave this one 3 stars. The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this 3 stars as well. Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I gave this 4 stars. I loved this book. The next one was The Martian by Andy Weir. I gave this 4 stars. I watched the movie when it first came out in whenever, 2015 or something like that. I loved it. Reading the book, I love the book way more. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Tajisaki Kawaguchi. I think I've really butchered that author's name, but I thought that this was a really sweet story and I gave it 4 stars. The next one up is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and I gave this 4 stars as well. My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I gave it 3 stars. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I gave it 4.5 stars. Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Marina Garcia. I gave it 4 stars. This next book, okay, I'm gonna say the name of it and then I'm gonna explain it. The Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom. I think that's how you pronounce that author's name. And I gave it 3 stars. This book was a lot more historical and religious than what my mind thought. I was cleaning my house one day, and usually when I clean, I like a short audiobook that is not super heavy, requires a lot of thinking. It's just kind of background noise. I went to Libby, found what was available, and I was like, oh, cool. I don't really read synopsis of books. I looked at the cover, thought The Stranger in the Lifeboat sounded kind of cool. I rented out the audiobook, and it was only a 3-hour audiobook, so I was like, oh, perfect. I can finish this in a couple of hours. And I thought it was a thriller. It's not, it's not a thriller. It's not a thriller at all. So you can imagine my shock when it was nothing like I was expecting it to be. It was still a beautiful story though. I would not consider myself a super religious person, but I don't think that you have to be to appreciate the story, and I liked it. I liked it for what it was. There was a little bit of a curve there when I realized that this was not a thriller and there wasn't going to be hacking and slashing. Silly me. The next one is No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall. I actually really liked this book and I gave it 5 stars. The next one up is The Hero of Ages, and I gave it 5 stars. The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. And the last book that I listened to on audio and I finished it was The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. I gave this 4.5 stars. I thought that was a really fun story and it was a lot cuter than I expected, and I actually listened to that book all in one go. One day I just did a deep clean and I listened to that book all day and it was a really fun time. The one book I ended up DNFing, it is Invisible Women, Data Biased in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez. The only reason I DNF'd this book, and it has nothing to do with the writing, with the data. Hey, I'm all for data. I just could not get past the narrator's voice. I'm very picky with my audiobooks. If I don't like the voice, I can't enjoy the story. I know I just did a whole rapid fire of books at you guys. Anything you want to hear more of my opinions on, definitely let me know down in the comments below. I want to briefly talk about my reading goals for the next 4.5 months until the end of the year. And this will probably just be my last little update, the nice little reset, because I have been enjoying a lot of my reading. I mentioned a few of the books that are on my radar for the rest of the year, which is going to be that 2025 book list. It's the beginning of August now, and I want to finish Wrath by John Gwen. The next one I want to read is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I want to tackle Sunrise on the Reaping by Susie Collins. I know I don't want to say it's a pretty short book, but I know I'm gonna want to read that book in 1 or 2 days. So it's not going to take me too terribly long to read that book. And then To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Those are the 4 books that I want to try and aim to read by the end of August. September, I can dive into some of those thrillers. I know my book club, we're going to be meeting, I think sometime in September. I'll be able to read that book and then tackle some of the thrillers, try and finish some of the series that are on the list that I have, like those 5 series. We're being super, super ambitious, which I don't want to say I'm not. I'm just trying to be more practical. If you count all of the books that I have left, it's about 25 books. We're going to be perfectly honest, that's not happening. There is no way I am going to be reading 25 books by the end of the year. So I've read 32 out of the 50, but it's taken me 8 months to read those 32 books. The goal is to just prioritize the ones that are on that list that I'm feeling kind of, you know, vibing with. I will leave you guys today, but I'm going to circle back to you tomorrow because I want to end the vlog with a little bit of like some personal stuff, reflecting on some personal things. So I will see you guys tomorrow. So the last part of this video, it's just going to be some life things, a little bit of personal reflections and resetting to reflect. Since I feel like I haven't really had a chance to talk to you guys for like the last year, and I know some of my more recent vlogs have been a lot more like reading heavy and they haven't really revolved too much around what's been going on in my personal life. As we know, I have been doing my master's program and that has been going extremely well. This past summer, I took my first coding class, which was really interesting. It's called R&R Markdown, and I'd never taken a coding class before, but I did really, really well in that class. In fact, my professor for that class had reached out to me and said whatever project that we had been working on the entire summer, she had told me that she really liked the topic that I picked. And so she had told me that once classes are over, I should get back to her and we can think about maybe possibly publishing. Class has been over for about a week and I felt like I needed a break, but I definitely want to reach back out to this professor and see what do I have to do, you know, what are the steps that we're gonna have to take, because I think that'd be really incredible to get something published, because I'm a writer, even though this is totally different from like creative writing. If I could have a publication under my belt, that would be incredible, especially in like the work industry, like jobs, that could really give me a leg up. So I am pretty excited about that. I have 2 semesters left, which is so crazy. So this fall semester, I have 3 classes that I'm going to be taking. I can't remember the names of them. The spring of 2026, I have my clinicals, and then I think I take 2 classes, but one of them I think is like my capstone, and then I have 1 more class left. And then I'm finished, which is so totally wild. So I've been thinking about where I want to do my clinicals, and we can choose where we do our clinicals for this program. It just has to be approved, but this program has certain sites that they recommend to people, and I have my eyes on a few sites. Any of those sites just kind of depend on other factors in life. Scheduling. Right now I work in a hospital and I do 312s. If that schedule ends up changing, I think some of the potential practicum sites are going to change, but that's just something I have to work out on my own, just things that I have to think about. So it's a lot of little things that I've been thinking about lately. I am going to be reaching out to some people very soon about all the clinical stuff so I can go ahead and get all of that taken care of. So then when it comes time to register for classes, I can just submit all the information. I want to switch gears and talk about a couple of little fun things. Something that I don't think I talked too much about on my channel at all, like ever, maybe once or twice in a live stream. But before I joined the writing community on YouTube, I used to be a really heavy gamer. When I say heavy gamer, I mean heavy gamer. I was obsessed with video games. I was obsessed with playing like certain games. Like I didn't play every single thing that was out there. I would have my 3 or 4 games that I would play. I would play these games for like 18 hours a day. I cannot tell you guys how often I would play video games, sit down to play for a couple of hours, and it's the next day. But we all know what happened in 2020. One of my immediate family members actually had COVID and we all had to quarantine for 2 weeks. Nobody else got it in our house, thank goodness, but I stayed in my room for for like 2 weeks, and I played Assassin's Creed, the Odyssey one, the entire time. And I played that and then The Sims 4. And it was around that time when I realized, okay, I kind of have a problem here. I need to do other things. So that's what got me back into writing, where I was like, I need to find a healthier habit, you know, like a healthier hobby. I used to love to write, and I used to love to read and to do things like that, be creative in that way. Why not dive back into that? And so in 2020, I cut off all forms of gaming because it had gotten beyond ridiculous. I slowly worked out the bad habit of playing video games. And I would say over the last 5 years, I barely played The Sims. I would say maybe 1 or 2 times a year, if that, I would either re-download RuneScape, old school RuneScape, or peek at my Sims family on The Sims 4. But besides that, I did not let myself play video games because I knew it would go back to, I would play it for like days and days at a time and literally do nothing else. And I just can't do that. I can't let myself do that anymore. In June, for the first time in probably a year and a half, I sat down and played The Sims. But I have been very, very disciplined with it, and I'm very proud of myself. So I'm slowly letting myself play video games again. And when I say play video games, I literally mean The Sims 4. And I think I have broken that habit. All of that to say is I've been playing The Sims 4 a lot more now, and I've been having a lot of fun. I am enjoying it. And then the last thing I want to share with you guys, a couple of months ago, one of my all-time best friends, we met online in 2020 when we both joined the writing community. We met in person for the very first time a couple of months ago, and it was the best experience ever. I am so incredibly happy that I have her friendship. It's so rare to have a friend like that. I got to meet somebody else who's in our book club. It was absolutely amazing. It really did mean a lot to me, and it just really solidified our friendship. Those are pretty much all of my life updates. I don't think I had anything else that I wanted to share. I had wrote down some notes because I knew when I sit down I was not going to remember anything, but that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Let me know writing reflection, reading reflection, or even a life reflection that you want to share with me, and let me know a goal for each of those categories down below if you'd want to. I would definitely love to know and cheer you on. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Autumn, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.